So I did my first webinar today and I learned something interesting about the truth. Hi, I'm Coach Bruce and I'm a life coach for ADHD parents. I was not expecting to tell the story that I told in the middle of my webinar about connecting. Um, the truth has a way of working itself out. I tell the truth. Like that is a foundational principle of my platform. I've been doing it for, some time now. I think about a year and a half is whenever I started to really start to get familiar with the truth. I didn't really start to feel the truth until a couple months ago whenever I went off my Adderall. Didn't realize that telling it was not enough. You need to actually feel the emotions that go along with it to really encourage the change that the truth gives you. And what else I learned about truth is that it's going to come out whether you want it to or not whenever you tell the truth. Like there are moments in which you don't want to tell a story because it's embarrassing. But if you are a truth teller, if it fits, it ships. Like like the postal service. Uh, I was not wanting to tell the story about how I had separated or how I had gotten in the worst position in my marriage that I'd ever been in. And that was whenever I had bought naked pictures from a girl on, well, I mean, I want to say it's online, but it happened. The exchange happened online, but this was actually a person that I had met in person before. And when my wife found out, she was extremely upset because this is somebody that she knew. So this was not just the stupidest thing I'd ever done, but it was actually one of the most emotionally damaging things I had ever I had ever committed. Like I had actually been in a physical affair before, and this was worse because the woman I was in an affair with, like she didn't know her. This was somebody that she knew. And I didn't think about any of this whenever I was making this mistake because I was spinning out from my lies. Like I was just struggling to survive. That connection never even came up in my mind until she brought it up to me. I didn't even consider what I was doing as wrong because I was in this state of chasing the good feeling. Like as long as I feel good and I'm not actively cheating, then it's fine. But if you don't know this, maybe you need to hear it like I did. Buying naked pictures from a person is that's cheating. Maybe you can justify watching porn if everybody knows what's going on. Sure, I mean that's between you and your spouse, but for me, I thought that this was okay because it's just pictures, right? Just flirting with the person trying to get a discount. It's just still just pictures. I was way off base. I mean, I literally had no standard that I was responsible to anymore. And I'm going to close this really quick because my lights are going crazy. But in this situation, I found myself really exposed. I had done a really damaging thing that pushed my wife farther away than she had ever been from me. And her call, like her challenge to me was figure your shit out now, or you'll be figuring it out alone. And in that moment, I started to really feel the pressure for the first time ever in my life that if I didn't get it, if I didn't get it done now, she was really going to leave me. And I realized how important it was to me that she didn't. So I did the work. And it was some of the darkest, most painful conversations and self work I'd ever done. And in that time, a path exposed itself to me. A What is now called the Connect framework or the Connect method is what I found in my darkest moments was a way back to connect with my wife again. Was everything that I had to do to be able to engage with her in a deep way. And it's not easy, but it's simple. And that's what my course was about. That's the webinar that I was teaching. And in teaching that, I had to tell this story about how I got there in the first place. Like how did I end up coming up with this framework? What drove me there? And so I had planned on telling a different story. Not it was another true story. It was a story about finding deeper connection, but it wasn't the story. This was the story, and it became very apparent as I was prepping for this presentation that the story needed to be told. And so when the time came, the story came out. The truth was, it was like, all right, I'm up. And I told it. And it was good. As embarrassing as the truth can be sometimes, it always feels good for me to get it out. Like that little bit of embarrassment, it feels awkward, but it feels like a little piece of my heart is being glued back in place because I've been damaged a lot. There was a lot of disconnection and suppression that had basically broken my own heart. And nobody's going to fix that for me. No amount of love from anybody else can fix that. But I can control how I face this world, and doing things like pushing myself to discomfort in my truth is how I become stronger and how I put myself back together. And this was one of those moments. It's not like there was 50 people in this webinar, but had there been, it would have been the same. And as I continue to teach it for the rest of the month and the next month, that will be the story I tell. And it's still kind of, it brings me a little anxiety, but that's the story that needs to be told for the framework to make sense. And if you are interested in learning more about the framework, then you should go to www.impulsive.life/connect. And you can sign up for the webinar. That's Thursdays at 3:30 p.m. Central. And I will be teaching just that lesson. It's about 30, maybe 45 minutes with a couple more stories I might add. But you will learn how you too can engage in the relationships in your life that have become distant, dormant, or maybe even estranged. And you can bring those relationships back to life and have the deepest connection you've ever had. All right, that is it for me today. Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you tomorrow.